Hi, folks. Sorry, just adjusting the camera there. The new moon in Pisces is on February the 27th, 4:44 a.m. Pacific time. Um, I'm going to do a couple of housekeeping items, and then we will launch right into the content. Sorry, I was organizing in my mind exactly how I would go over the content, and there is a method to the madness. Okay, housekeeping items. I'm running discounted readings, $50 for 30 to 40-minute reading centered around a single topic, $100 for a 60 to 75-minute reading focused on the astrology of between now and the end of April, covering the two eclipses and Mercury and Venus retrograde, and the activities in the Pisces and the Aries part of our chart. So that's item number one. My email address is in the description box below. You can email me there, and I can then get you other regular readings are available as well. So I can get you the information. You can decide what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Number two, even though there's no content there, and today might be the last day there's no content there, memberships are now available. Sign-specific content, for example, sign-specific information related to the new moon in Pisces. That's my goal for posting those videos there this week. And other instructional videos related to astrology will be in the membership section, so you're welcome to join. Otherwise, you'll see the videos start to pop up, and you can determine if you're interested in availing of that content or not. Thank you to the folks who have already joined. It's, as I said, kind of an astonishing act of extended faith and trust in paying for something that isn't there, just because I said it will be there, and it will. But still, it's a lovely thing. Okay, let's talk about the Pisces new moon. I want to cover very, very briefly, in a few sentences, all the different entities that are in Pisces. The slow-moving planets are Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune. Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012. And the three things that I am seeing with Neptune when I look at everyone's house occupied by the sign of Pisces, in your birth chart, there will be a house occupied by the sign of Pisces, just as there's a house occupied by each sign. Now, I use whole signs, so for me, the sign that is rising on the eastern horizon on the date, time, and location of your birth is your rising sign, as it is for everybody, your ascendant, and that entire sign sits in the first house, and then the next sign in the second, next sign in the third, next sign in the fourth. You are welcome to follow whatever chart house system works for you, but the house or houses occupied by Pisces, that is where the new moon is occurring. That is where Neptune has been since 2012. And Neptune, on a more career-related level, Neptune can be associated with the arts, creativity, inspiration, the muses, imagination. Think of things coming to you almost like they exist in a cloud and they're sort of being downloaded to you. It is not intuition as much as it is visions, inspiration. If you're a musician, if you're an actor, if you're a painter, those things that come to you from that mysterious kind of weird numinal liminal space, heightened spirituality, longing to merge with and lose a sense of egoic definition and seek comfort in merging with source, monasticism, isolation, surrender, kind of spiritual practices, dreams, and on a more practical level, yes, things like music, of course, which is very Neptunian, but also things related to the healing of the collective. So certain types, modalities of therapy, a certain peace, a certain acceptance, a certain dissolution of sort of strong 3D accretions, egoic accretions. Now, what this translates to is one or more of these three things. Either matters related to the Pisces part of the chart have become foggy and difficult to manage and difficult to act responsibly around, difficult to organize, difficult to execute on, increasingly since 2012. Now, for me, since 2012, Neptune's been there, and there were crisis years in 2016, 17, 14, 15, leading to 16, 17. And then after that, 2023, Saturn came into Pisces, seeking to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. So, lack of organization, creative, artistic, therapeutic, spiritual pursuits, and in some cases with Neptune, loss, often through the means of shadowy, foggy, deceptive, gaslighty, undefined behavior. Now, depending on where Pisces sits in your chart, this could be you playing your cards close to your chest. It could be others playing their cards close to the chest. A lack of definition. So that's Neptune and Pisces. And Neptune rules Pisces. Yeah. Number two, Saturn came into Pisces in 2023. Saturn, for me, is the anti-Neptune, and Neptune is the anti-Saturn. Saturn seeking to ground this part of the chart in responsibility, consequence, learning lessons, being effective, acting maturely, acting responsibly, acting non-reactively, processing the lessons, processing cause and effect, understanding that you can be right and effective and right and ineffective, setting boundaries, trying to see if you yourself are the one who's being unreasonable. Structure, definition, responsible action, managing the crisis in Pisces, stopping the energy leaks, putting structure around behaviors that have been irresponsible or procrastinating, and also, in a positive context, putting structure around Neptunian ambitions in the Pisces part of the chart, in the house occupied by Pisces. And Saturn going through Pisces is the most important transit of 2025. Number three, the North Node entered Pisces in the beginning of this year, and the Pisces-Virgo eclipses, I think we feel the impact of these from the middle of July 2024 to February 2027. Now, we are still, till the end of the first week of July of 2025, experiencing the Aries-Libra eclipses as well. There's always kind of a handoff or a transition period. But we've already had one lunar eclipse in Pisces in the middle of September 2024, and we are headed towards, on March the 13th, the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse on the Pisces-Virgo axis. This is part of the reason, prior to this video, that I did the video on the conjunctions with Saturn, starting to look ahead at that eclipse in yesterday's video. And please don't worry, I will be doing a video on the lunar eclipse as this week and as we head into next week. And this week, in the membership portion, there will be science-specific content related to Pisces new moon. Next week, I'm going to put science-specific content related to the eclipses. And I'm not, yeah, anyway, I don't want to keep qualifying. Anyway, let me just keep going. When the North Node or the North Node eclipses go over a particular part of the chart, we are given opportunities, experiences, a sense of longing, a sense of calling to lean into, in this case, the Pisces part of the chart, because our 3D development, if we have certain goals or desires, are longing to move in a certain direction, or a sense of calling, or sense of this is why I'm here, this is what I'm here to do, being attached to 3D results about this is where I want to leave my mark or achieve things or do things, or, then the North Node eclipses, as they go around the chart, create a cycle of progress through leading us. It's like a carrot at the end of a stick. We keep going towards that carrot, And in the process, we grow, we learn, we evolve, we acquire skills, we get in touch with something that is right for us. The process can be sometimes a little tortured because with the North Node eclipses, there's a sense of longing, there's a sense of desire, there's sort of hunger to move in a certain direction. As I say, the North Node eclipses have a tendency to promise more than they deliver, but there's also kind of requirement for us to lean in that direction, because without that carrot at the end of the stick, the carrot at the end of the stick is almost an archetypal way for the universe to make us feel like we're going after something, when that's really not what we're going after. It's just we need some sort of a mental concept to be going after something. But it's in that process of going after that thing, or what we think we're going after. And this is why I always say with the North Node eclipses, don't get too attached to the outcome. The evolution will come from leaning into the opportunities that the North Node eclipses bring you. And whatever about those opportunities has a strain of disappointment to it, that disappointment will also serve as the fuel for the next set of eclipses. The chart keeps moving. There is no destination. But the eclipses for me are the most important aspect, for lack of a better word, occurring at any given point in the chart. If you want to know, anyway, I'm trying to not say things 4 or 5 times. If you want to know, if you at a glance want to see what is going on as a primary thing in someone's life, look to where the eclipses are. After that, look to where Saturn is. After that, look to where Jupiter is. And right now, my friends, the North Node eclipses, at least part of that energy currently, all of that energy after the end of the first week of June of this year, and Saturn are both in Pisces. And the new moon in Pisces on February 27th squares Jupiter and Gemini. So all the heavy hitters are involved in this. And some of you will say, well, what about Pluto? Pluto's the heaviest hitter of all. Absolutely is. I'm talking about what is going on in the chart and what we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. Pluto's transformations are absolutely the most powerful transformations of all. No question. But there's a slowness and a steadiness to them, so that it takes a slight bird's eye view to really get a sense of what's going on there. It's not so much things that I felt on a day-to-day with that kind of intensity. So we've already got Saturn stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, requiring a minimizing of energy leaks, financial leaks, setting boundaries, adopting responsible behaviors, learning lessons, understanding what it is like for people to deal with you, understanding what it's like to deal with people, situations, things that have gotten out of hand since 2012. With Neptune's involvement, there could be a desire to move in Neptune. So someone could want to form a dance troupe. Someone could want to move in a musical direction. Someone could want to deepen their spiritual practices. Someone could want to renounce everything and move to a monastery. Someone could really want to lean into healing the collective in some sort of way, all that could be part of Neptune. It could be that you're dealing with some sort of loss through some people acting strangely, you being really kind of protective about what's going on. All of that is Neptune, and Saturn is seeking to structure and minimize some of this desire, chaos, deception that Neptune has a tendency to create. Ultimately, what Neptune is trying to do is trying to, just like Pluto, but even more, in Pluto's case, Pluto is often trying to construct something. All that Neptune is trying to do is to put you in touch with your real self by saying, you are too egoically attached. Your identity is too attached to certain things. And we want to if it's not right for you, and if it's going to be more of a pain for you, then we want to erase, loosen. Always remember, someone told me once, and I think this is very, very true and very, very fair of Neptune, remember where your source is. Because sometimes some people, and this is especially true of the 3D realm, certain people, certain entities may make you feel like, well, I'm your only possible source for something. I'm your only possible source for funds. I'm not your only possible source for. Now, Neptune is notorious, just as the North Node is, to make us act recklessly and say, you think you're the boss of me? I know where my source is. I am going to walk out of this situation. And admittedly, that particular thing is not your source, but it might be better to have source help you line the next thing up before you do something rash and find yourself in an even bigger pickle. And that would be knowing where your source is and knowing that whatever situation is currently imposing a kind of restriction on you is not your source, but the way to work with source to get that next thing lined up so that we can move to something and source can help us with that next thing, as opposed to just kind of dare source to say, I'm going to be walking out of this situation, so I know where my source is. Source, come through in the next 5 minutes. The source is going to be like, and the North Node, of course, has a tendency through the yearning or the desire to move in a certain direction through the carrot at the end of the stick to, again, kind of throw all caution to the wind. But I will say to you with the North Node, pay attention to what is calling you and what that desire is. Get the experiences that you want to. Don't get too attached to the outcome, and don't be too rash. Or if you're going to you've got to make sure that you're clear about what your emotional and your financial security limits are. So those are the energies that are operating through the Pisces part of the chart. Saturn, until the beginning of the year, had his work cut out for him with regard to primarily having to deal with Neptune. And that is still Saturn's task, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart. But with the North Node having entered and Saturn moving towards a conjunction with the North Node, structuring, testing, even the direction that we're supposed to move in, Saturn's going to find his attention in Pisces a little bit split around concretizing and putting some discipline and rigor and responsibility towards getting real about what it is that is attracting us and what we're trying to move towards in the Pisces part of the chart. It could even be an invitation to move towards something that could lead to long-term stability or the fulfillment of ambitions through hard work, the right partnership, the right job, the right opportunity, the right thing to pursue in the Pisces part of the chart. And then, of course, Saturn is moving towards the conjunction with Neptune, which, of course, will happen when Saturn and Neptune move into Aries at the end of February of 26. But Saturn and Neptune, for all intents and purposes, are going to be conjunct and traveling together. I would say as we approach April, May onwards of this year, all the way to February of next year. So those are the slower moving planets that are going through Pisces. The personal planets, the faster moving planets that go through each part of the chart roughly at around the same time every year. Venus has gone through Pisces in January and is currently in Aries, getting ready to go retrograde in 5 days' time at about 9 or 10 degrees of Aries. Mercury is currently in Pisces, but in a week's time, Mercury is going to leave Pisces and go into Aries, get up to about 9 or 10 degrees of Aries, and then go retrograde in Aries on March the 15th. The Sun is already in Aries and has been in Aries for about a week. And it is because the Sun is in Aries that we get to have the new moon, because the moon is going to catch up with the Sun. The moon is currently in Aquarius, dark, the dark of the moon. And the moon is going to meet up with the Sun on the 27th of February at 4:44 a.m. Pacific time, and we're going to have a new moon. And as you know, the next 24, 48 hours as we head to the new moon, things might feel a little anxiety provoking. You may be really fighting between getting things done and staring into space. You know, you're releasing the last month of the year. Your emotional energy is kind of depleted. You need to rest and try not to, if over the next 48 hours you have feelings of hopelessness or you have feelings of kind of a depression, just wait till the new moon occurs so that the wind can get behind your sails again. But Venus in January has already come into the Pisces part of the chart doing her annual, what do we need to do to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment with what we value? Here are some potential opportunities. Venus conjuncting Saturn on January the 18th could either mean that you built on that opportunity successfully, or you may have sabotaged it by virtue of lessons that Saturn wants you to learn and grow and mature from. Mercury conjuncts Saturn today. Responsible communications, communications around building something concretely, consequences of what occurred as you headed towards January the 18th. And I talk about these conjunctions with Saturn in greater detail in the video I did yesterday, because the full moon that's going to happen 2 weeks after this new moon in Pisces, the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, opposes Saturn. On March the 12th, the Sun conjuncts Saturn in Pisces, and the very next day, there's the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo opposing the Sun and Saturn. So these conjunctions with Saturn are an important drumbeat. And they continue to be an important drumbeat even into April, because a retrograde Venus is going to come back to conjunct Saturn twice. Retrograde conjunct Saturn goes direct conjunct Saturn. So these conjunctions with Saturn, responsibility, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, very important. Now you might say, Abhi, why are you telling us all this and giving us all this information? I'm giving you all this information because I really want you to pull out a pad of paper, and I want you to write down everything. Everything. Good, bad, indifferent. That is a priority for you in the Pisces part of your chart. In any of the 3 categories that I've mentioned above, or anything else that comes to your mind if you know your chart and you know the house occupied by Pisces. On a positive side, are you trying to concretize, structure, move towards certain types of ambitions in the Pisces part of the chart? Are you trying to deal with the consequences of loss or deception, or do boundaries need to be set? Or do you need to start to operate in a more open manner? Or now, what is your relationship with what this crisis in Pisces has been if it's a crisis of loss and deception? What do you need to do to responsibly manage affairs in the Pisces part of the chart so that obligations are being met? There's a plan of action, plans are committed to, people are communicated with, so that nothing from this spills over. Because remember, we're trying to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart so that we can move towards an exciting future in the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini part of the chart. North Node eclipse in Aries on March 29th. Uranus is in Taurus, Jupiter is in Gemini, and the new moon in Pisces squares Jupiter. The biggest urgency with the new moon in Pisces is that action needs to be taken in the Pisces part of the chart so that Jupiter can be freed to continue to end his 12-13-year cycle and begin a new 12-13-year cycle of alignment in the Gemini part of your chart, the house occupied by Gemini. And I'm going to expand on this a little bit later in this video. But Venus already went through what do we need to do to bring in the Pisces part of the chart into alignment with Mercury over the past couple of weeks, and for another week, processing, thinking, writing, working on things through a communication or cognition perspective. The Sun coming in illuminates the entire Pisces part of the chart, saying here's what the status is. And then the new moon occurs at 4:44 a.m. I love saying that, on February the 27th, and opens up a 4-week month. Every new moon starts a 4-week month, the word month derived from the word moon, in the house where that new moon occurs. And it is a 4-week month of action related to bringing the Pisces part of the chart into alignment with what you value and where you want to go. Retrogrades be damned. The retrogrades have a part in this narrative because they go from Aries back into Pisces. Both Mercury and Venus go direct in Pisces and then enter Aries. Both Mercury and Venus come back into By March the 3rd, Mercury will be out of Pisces as well. All we will have left in Pisces from a personal planet perspective is the sun. And of course, we have Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune. We've got plenty in Pisces. And we have the month of Pisces underway for almost all of March. By the time we're getting the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, Venus and Mercury have backed into Pisces. And on April the 7th, Mercury goes direct, and by April the 15th, 16th, he walks back into Aries again. And with Venus, Venus goes direct April the 15th, and then she spends another couple of weeks in Pisces as she goes direct and moves out of Pisces. So we are going to have both Venus and Mercury retrograde and then direct in Pisces in April. So even though Venus and Mercury are not going to be in Pisces for most of the month of Pisces created by the new moon, it is still a time for us when we pick up on the developments in January and over the last 2 or 3 weeks in the Pisces part of the chart, and we act on it, keeping in mind that conjunctions will be made with Saturn, the North Node, Neptune, and these conjunctions will, at this point in time, we've got by the end of this week, before March the 3rd, before Mercury moves into Pisces, Mercury will conjunct the North Node and Neptune later this week, between Friday and Sunday of this week. So Mercury will conjunct, and then as the month continues and we head past March the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, the Sun conjuncts Saturn first on the 12th, and then as the Sun gets ready to leave Pisces, as we get closer to the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of March, he will conjunct the North Node, and he will conjunct Neptune. But the new moon sets up a month of Pisces of action, bringing the Pisces part into the chart into alignment, most of all, helping Saturn stabilize the Pisces part of the chart and have the action occur in such a way that it frees Jupiter to end a 12-13-year cycle, start a 12-13-year cycle in the Gemini part of your chart, the house occupied by Gemini. Now, houses that trine each other, the 1st, 5th, and 9th, for example, the 1st stands for you, the 5th stands for your inner child, what your heart desires, the 9th stands for your relationship with your authenticity, your integrity, source, your goals. Houses that trine each other, the 2nd, 6th, and 10th, what you value, what you offer to the world of value and charge for it, and how you create your income and your stability and your resources, your job, your career and calling. Houses that trine each other, the 3rd, the 7th, and the 11th, the most social houses of your chart, your immediate community, your partners in critical contracts, the collective. The most personal parts of the chart, 4th, 8th, 12th, being at home physically, being at home in your critical relationships, your codependent relationships, financially, emotionally, being at home with source, contemplating the consequences of these close interactions and the karma that is accumulated and distributed in them. These houses don't have to work very hard to work together. They're practically extensions of each other. Houses that square each other. Remember that the new moon in Aquarius a month ago trined Jupiter in Gemini. And sometimes with trines, astrologers will often say, you may not even feel it. With squares, there's an awkwardness to the interactions. There's a dependency. You have to do something, and an action you take in that house will have a consequence or an effect on the houses that are squared by it. So the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th, and this is the thing with squares. A square is halfway between an opposition. The first and the seventh house oppose each other. The fourth and the 10th house oppose each other. And these four houses square each other. If you take some sort of step with regard to your selfhood or identity, it is fair to assume that it will likely have an impact on your home, land, real estate, your most private part of the chart, your partners and your partnerships, and your career and calling in the most public part of the chart. If you take some sort of an action with regard to your income or your emotional independence, surely it will have some sort of an impact on the things that you love to do, maybe even your children, what you're creating, your financial and emotional obligations with your partners, the collective and what you choose to do for the collective or with ensemble. There's a tension around it, and part of the tension is also that you have to manage or balance activities so that if you're dealing with a restriction in the second house, it may mean that you are not free enough to take that vacation or go and just jump off and do what you love to do in the fifth house. There's a tension. And so on. Sometimes a square like the new moon squaring Jupiter could be connected with the same set of activities for Capricorn rising folks. Having a new moon in your third house, squaring Jupiter in your sixth house, the relationship between education and jobs, your immediate community, sales, resumes, interviews, the environment you're in on a day-to-day basis, something there, action needing to be taken so that whatever new beginnings have been created from a job perspective for you since May of 24 all the way to the end of June of 25, Jupiter can continue to act on it. But there's some sort of a codependency there. But it could be thematically this way. If you're a Leo rising, this is a harder thing to coordinate. The new moon is in your eighth house of shared resources. What could possibly be the correlation between a new moon in the eighth house and Jupiter trying to create an ending, a new beginning in your 11th house of friends, networks, social circles? Unless there's something you're trying to do from a shared resources perspective, you manage a nonprofit that provides medical supplies, kind of 11th house humanitarian, measurable impact, not-for-profit work, then that could be a correlation. But also there could be, and this is an important point, needing to stabilize financial and emotional obligations in the eighth house could mean that Jupiter is freer to move towards vistas that are not connected to what you're stabilizing, but by stabilizing them, you're freer to move in a direction that Jupiter is setting for you. So that is what you're going to have to gauge with this new moon in Pisces. The urgency to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. Is there some sort of very clear same subject matter dependency between the new moon and Jupiter, or stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart? By stabilizing it, does it remove enough of a distraction, enough of an energy leak, so that by stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart in March and also continuing to do so in April, allows Jupiter to move you towards newer vistas and create the endings and new beginnings in the Gemini part of the chart? In that case, it may not be related to the same theme, but managing one creates the opportunity to move in a desired direction in the Gemini part of the chart. Now, understand, please, that sometimes you have a month and the personal planets. If we did not have Venus and Mercury retrograde, my friends, Pisces season would be over by the end of March. Because by the time we have the new moon in April, the month of Pisces would be over and none of the personal planets would have been in Pisces by that time. The sun would be in Aries, Mercury would be in Aries, Venus would be in Aries. Who knows? By that time, they might even have been zipping into Taurus. But because Mercury and Venus go retrograde, we still have the personal planets, 2 of them, in Pisces in April. So just remember, Venus going through Pisces in January, Mercury currently in Pisces for the last couple of weeks for another week. The month of Pisces being inaugurated on February the 27th for 4 weeks. All of that is going to build on the past thing, but then what it's really leading to is Mercury and Venus, and especially Venus, tying things up in Pisces in the second half of April. Give me one sec. And there's something lovely about, I really, as I've said to you before, I really love it when Venus becomes the last planet to go through a part of the chart. When the sun and the new moon and Mercury have all made it through, and Venus is the last, because when she's direct and she starts to move through that chart in the second half of April, and especially that last week of April, there's the chance for her to just be like, all right, here are the results, here are the compromises, let's shake hands. Here are the blessings. I want to give you the exact date of when Venus moves into Aries and clears Pisces in April. Bear with me for a second, please. Yeah, on the last day of April, April the 30th, Venus moves into Aries. And she goes direct on the 14th. Yeah, no, the 12th of April. 12th of April, she goes direct. On the day of the Libra full moon, the sign that she rules. We'll get there. With this new moon in Pisces, everything that we have been waiting for in order to bring the Pisces part of the chart into some sort of order so it's less of an energy leak and move towards a future we want to create, we are now here. We are now in March and April. We are in those 2 months that we have been anticipating for all of 2024, and especially the second half of 2024. We are here. Whatever the status quo was in 23-24 cannot be sustained anymore. A new has to be created, and energy leaks and stresses and fogginess have to be countered. Now, Saturn and Neptune will be back in Pisces from September of 25 to February of 26, and there will be a final phase of managing through all of this. And next year's Pisces season will take over just as Neptune and Saturn clear Pisces. And that'll be really lovely and interesting and neat to kind of be in a place where we're even starting the middle of this year to some extent, you know, it'll be really nice to have Saturn clear and Neptune clear Pisces, and at least have a little bit of time when we have the eclipses that occur in February, March of 26, just kind of be eclipses. That's heavy enough. Outside of Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde and the Aries part of the chart wanting to move ahead, but nothing is able to move past the 10-degree sign in Aries until they go retrograde. And then the new moon solar eclipse that occurs on March 29th occurs at that 9 or 10 degrees of Aries, and then we can start to move ahead. But even in April, especially if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you're really not moving ahead until Venus clears Pisces and into Aries. There are certain things that need to be closed out and managed and stabilized in the Pisces part of your chart so that all the planets can resume their direct movement again. And the Aries part of the chart, and then the Taurus part of the chart, and then the Gemini part of the chart can start to flourish and we can move forward. It's a little bit like cars moving forward, and then we have to pull them back or they reverse. And it's like, no, we can't move past the 10-degree point in Aries yet. So this month of Pisces, there can't be a bigger invitation to roll up on your sleeves and to make things happen. And it almost feels like I'm doing this video as a kind of a just before we all as a collective dive off the diving board. Not only do we have a month of Pisces with Saturn, North Node, Neptune, and Pisces, with Venus and Mercury going retrograde and coming back into Pisces, but even during this month of Pisces, starting around March the 6th, we're in the eclipse vortex. The first eclipse is related to the new moon in Pisces because it is a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, the opposite sign. So whatever we're stabilizing as we head to that full moon lunar eclipse on March the 12th, 13th, this is why I did that video yesterday about heading towards the eclipse, there is some sort of a reaction that has been building all the way from the middle of January onwards that reaches some sort of a peak or a crescendo. Some of us may have felt the eclipse the second and third week of January. Some of us, we may not feel the eclipse directly on the 13th of March, but because with the lunar eclipse, as I said, it's like a crescendo. By that time, things are just kind of, the tumbleweeds are already rolling. So it's not like I'm going to get hit by one tumbleweed. They're just, you know, the change is afoot. But for some people, as you head to the 13th, at the very least, it's a full moon in Virgo. So we're still going to experience the full moonness, whether you experience the eclipse second, third week of January or second, third week of March. And then the March 29th new moon solar eclipse, of course, starts up its own month of Aries. For most of us, I think we can feel the importance of the time, the potential of the time, the sense of, oh God, had I only done this, and this, I would have been better, but now I have to deal with the consequences, and but change is here. Now, there are 4 aspects that are encoded into this new moon. 2 of them are related to Mars, which went direct a couple of days ago. Mars is still slow and relatively stationary. As I've said to you before, we will experience Mars's energy more in a couple of weeks' time, and particularly in April. The most critical aspects that Mars is going to make, trining Saturn, the North Node, Neptune, opposing Pluto, will happen in April as we head into early May, when Mars picks up on a certain amount of speed. But Mars trining Saturn, lovely, putting his support behind stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, and squaring Chiron, which is also lovely. There's a certain amount of urgency in tapping into our power, our healed self in the Aries part of the chart, are encoded into this Pisces new moon eclipse. Mars trining Saturn and squaring Chiron are embedded into the Virgo full moon lunar eclipse in the middle of the month. By the time we get to the March 29th solar eclipse, Mars will have squared Chiron. But what I love is that Mars trining Saturn and trining Neptune, and Mars will be moving forward faster then, will be encoded into that new moon solar eclipse in Aries as well. Support to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. In this month of Pisces, we take action. It is important and urgent to take action. I have also 2 or 3 videos ago done a video deliberately in this sequence around what is going on in the sign of Aries during March. Because while so much of our attention is going to be in the Pisces part of the chart, do not lose sight of some of the important forward-looking conditional opportunities that might show up in the Aries part of the chart during March as well. And of course, I will discuss them again when we do our weekly overviews, but that video is out there as well. So Mars from the Cancer part of the chart, finally direct, stationary-ish, moving forward, not entirely stationary, but slow. To me, what it means is we start to move towards stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart, but the bulk of the activity then in dotting the I and crossing the T for now is taken up by Venus and Mercury retrograde and then direct in April. And we'll have the month of Aries, but encoded into that month of Aries is Mars trining Saturn, trining the North Node. Also, and this is extremely important, encoded into this Pisces new moon chart is Mercury conjuncting the North Node and Neptune in Pisces. Mercury is direct. Within a week, Mercury will have completed these conjunctions. The fascinating thing is that when we have the next new moon in Aries on March 29th, also encoded into that new moon is Mercury conjunct the North Node and Neptune. The difference is Mercury is going to be retrograde at that time. So right now, Mercury is going direct and is going to conjunct the North Node and Neptune, moves forward in the middle of March, goes retrograde. By the time we get to the new moon in Aries on March the 29th, guess what? It is just getting ready to conjunct Neptune and the North Node again, retrograde. So the Pisces new moon chart and the Aries new moon chart both have Mars trining Saturn and Mercury conjuncting Neptune and the North Node encoded into them. I can't make this, it's clear. It's like the universe is like March and April. You're going to be focused. A lot of your focus is going to be on the Pisces part of the chart. And if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, absolutely, because the Aries part of the chart may show developments and things may show up that you respond to, but you may not be able to move forward totally clearly or see a certain kind of flow or certain cleanness or an organization in the Aries part of the chart until we get to that Taurus new moon at the end of April. For people who have Mercury retrograde in their charts, new moons and months where Mercury is direct carries that forward moving clear energy. Whereas new moons, like the solar eclipse in Aries on March the 29th, that have Mercury still retrograde, may bring opportunities, but details about those opportunities may change when Mercury goes direct, and a certain flow, cash flow, information, details, organization don't really get moving on those things until you get that new moon with a forward moving Mercury. So Mercury conjuncting Neptune and the North Node. All of March, even though Mercury is going to clear these 2 points in a week's time, and Mercury will be in Aries for the bulk of March, encoded into the month of Pisces is using communication to manage Neptunian goals or Neptunian chaos in the Pisces part of the chart, and to communicate around whatever it is that might be drawing you and pulling you forward from a North Node perspective. The North Node's transit right now in Pisces, to me, is compromised by its conjunctions to Neptune, certainly till very recently, and then Saturn. It's as if the direction we want to move to is diluted, or even we may be feeling like someone is kind of trying to be sneaky about it or take something from us, or I can't wait for us to actually really experience the Pisces Virgo eclipses more cleanly until we get past the end of the first week of June of this year. Then for about a full year, some part of us just gets to focus on the Pisces Virgo eclipses outside of this Saturn, Neptune, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart stuff. And we continue to have the North Node eclipses all the way to February 27. So I particularly like the fact that once we get past February 26 and both Saturn and Neptune are out of Pisces, we then have even some more time. Even though by that time we're going to start to move, the eclipses are going to start to move into Aquarius and Leo, we get to at least just focus on the eclipses themselves. That's enough to focus on. I'm trying to think about something. Sorry, give me a second. You're like, why are you pausing, Abhi? What is going on? Mercury conjuncting the Neptune and the North Node. Oh, yes, this is the fourth one. This is fascinating. The South Node in Virgo is getting ready to trine Uranus in Taurus. And the eclipse on March the 13th is a South Node lunar eclipse in Virgo. There's something about releasing something in the Virgo part of the chart. And this adds more color to what yesterday's video was about. Something about releasing what we need to in the Virgo part of the chart, and that process that started in the middle of January, that is going to help us move in the direction that is specific to us. Will help us move in the direction that is right for us and specific to us in the Taurus part of the chart. With Uranus, it is following the path and the breadcrumbs that are meant for you, releasing something in the Virgo part of the chart. Now, this Uranus South Node trine goes beyond. It's absolutely encoded into the new moon chart in Pisces. It's encoded into the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, where the actual eclipse occurs and the South Node is activated in the middle of March. And it continues, it's even encoded, I'm pretty sure, in the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. So even though the eclipse itself will occur in the middle, we still continue to go through this energy. But it's an interesting aspect that I wanted to go ahead and mention here. All of this is somehow just, and you might say, well, here's what's fascinating about it. Everything related to this new moon in Pisces, not only the aspect made by the new moon squaring Jupiter in Gemini, but all the surrounding aspects are all, each of them, connected to the Pisces part of the chart. And that doesn't happen always, at all. You could have a new moon in Pisces or a full moon in Virgo, and they could be making their own aspects. And then you could have other aspects in other parts of the chart going on, planets squaring each other, trining each other, that have nothing to do with the Pisces part of the chart. But Mercury conjuncting Neptune in the North Node are conjunctions happening in Pisces. Mars trining Saturn, and yes, Mars squares Chiron in Aries, but Mars trining Saturn is connected to Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces. And the South Node in Virgo trining Uranus, the South Node releasing something in the Virgo part of the chart is happening hand in hand with the North Node in Pisces, leaning into the Pisces part of the chart. No two points or activities work more closely together. Indeed, sometimes with eclipses, you might think, oh, it's my South Node eclipse in Virgo, but something happens in the Pisces part of the chart, and you're like, wait a second, that almost feels like a Pisces. But they are the same, they just move together, just oppose each other. There's the same principle. And sometimes for something to be released with the South Node, something has to happen in the North Node in order to do that. And then you can only move towards the North Node by releasing something, total symbiosis, total connection. But all these aspects are still connected to the Pisces part of the chart. So here we are, folks. Be gentle with yourself over the next 24, 48 hours. You may be feeling a certain amount of stress. I'll be the first to acknowledge that, or anxiety or depletion. We are in the dark of the moon. But after February 27th, it is game on. We are headed towards the eclipses. We're headed towards Venus going retrograde. I've done so many videos on Venus going retrograde. We're headed towards that Mercury retrograde. We're heading towards stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart in March and April so that you can move forward in the Aries, Taurus, Gemini parts of your chart where the expansion is occurring and right now waiting to occur as you stabilize the Pisces part of your chart. What this means, I'm so relieved to be done with this because now I can move on to the science-specific content related to this in the members part of the channel. If you want me to do a reading for you, whether it is a 30-minute reading around a single topic or a discounted reading looking at the astrology of March and April and how it relates to your birth chart, or one of my regular readings, use the email address in the description box below and email me there and I can get back to you with rates and timing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And when you subscribe, there's that bell icon, wiggly bell on top. Click on that and you'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button underneath the channel. You can use that to contribute to channel. Information and donations is in the description box. Comment or like the video. Comment on like the video. These are free ways you can support the channel. And they give them circulation on YouTube. And information on joining the members only is also in the description box now. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this motivating. And I hope you found and find this video. I hope for anybody who experienced, because eclipses, endings and new beginnings, and things and people and situations being eclipsed in and out of our lives, and this is not an eclipse video, but for some of us, the ground will shake, because it's the only way the universe can get us to move in the direction that we need to. But there's just no room for the status quo at this point in time. Okay. Thank you for your time, for your attention, for your support. Let me go ahead and upload this. And I think I want to do, the next video I want to do on the channel is just briefly going over Mars's energy again. It's not, I already touched on it a little bit in the weekly overview, and the most key or critical points of those I've already communicated, but I want to do that. And then I typically wait till about 2 or 3 days before a full moon to do that, but I think maybe by the time I'm done with the Mars video, it'll be time to do next week's weekly update. So we'll the weekly overview, and after that, I think the smart thing or the right thing to do is to then start to focus on the eclipses. And that is what I will do. So those, I think, are the next 3 videos. Mars, weekly overview, and then the video on the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. Okay, take care. Thank you.